be worn usually in the first week, not on Shabbat, and sometimes people wear it for the first month. It's a sign for others that you are indeed grieving and you've had this terrible loss. It's a sign for yourself that you've had this terrible loss. It's also a way of bringing Jeanette. She's there with us in these times. Repeat after me. This is a blessing from 2,000 years ago that the rabbis used in bad times. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'amen. Bless you, God, King of the universe, Judge of truth. We're going to tear from the bottom. It's just meant to look.
I can start with tear. Sometimes it's start with being tear for yourself.
Say from the book of Job, Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakaki, Shem Adonai, Torah. May we do honor and justice to Jeanette's memory, and God be with us in this difficult time, and may her spirit always shine for us. We're going to begin in our leaflet with Psalm 23.
Mizmor David, Adonai Robi, lo echsar, v'noteshe yarbetzeni, hameb menukot inachaleni, nafshi shaveh, yancheni v'magret tzedek, leman shemo, gam kirei, v'yitzal movet, oy ra ra, ki ata imadi, shivtecha v'mishantecha, hema yinamuni. Taro lefanai shulchan neged surerai T'shanta v'Hashem roshi kasir vayah Ach tov v'chesed yidafuni goyimei chayai v'shaviti v'beit Adonai liorech yamim.
I'd like to bring up her son Barry to read for us Psalm 23. The English is in your leaflet.
King David's 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Who maketh me to lie down in green pastures, who leadeth me beside the still waters, who restoreth my soul, who leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for thy name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.
Where words fail, music speaks. It speaks of the pain, of the sorrow, of the lost, of the life we live. It shares emotions. It's a way to connect, to understand what others feel. Where words fail, music speaks. It tells the truth, whether you want it or not. Music shares the souls of those we're around, of those in the world that we're living. I wish to share my music with you so you can understand the pain I feel, so I can share my soul with you, so you can understand what I'm going through. Today we say goodbye to a beautiful human being filled with music. Jeanette had a joyous spirit that from an early age we'll hear spoke to the world through her violin. For all of us here who had a chance to hear that beautiful violin music, it was done with such heart. It was almost as if it was an appendage of her body. That's how closely the instrument was to her. Something she loved throughout her life and something that she communicated often with Barry. And we're going to have a chance later to hear from Barry. This is a sad day to say goodbye to our beloved community member, family member. Jeanette was someone important in this space that we're in. I'm grateful that we can give her and honor her in the way that she deserves. I'm sad to see her gone from this world. 103 years and a half. It's not quite enough, but I'm also glad she's at peace. I'm glad that her family is at peace. And I'm glad that the music that she played and sang that resonated in her soul will continue through the ones that she loved. We're going to have an opportunity to hear about her journey, which is a wonderful journey. You're going to be astounded. I got a chance to learn from her family. I told them I only knew the top of the tree. Now I got to see the roots. And that was really wonderful to me. So we're going to hear from all three boys, starting with Harlan. They're not boys anymore, but her three children. Starting with Harlan, I'd like you to come up and share a little bit about your mom.
Good afternoon. My memories of our mother revolve around family. Mom was born in Buffalo in 1921 to Sarah and Meyer Corris. Her mother, Sarah Herring, was one of 8 siblings who grew up in New York City, but were all Latvian born. That entire brood of 8 siblings, and I imagine some spouses and perhaps some kids, decided to move to Buffalo, which then was considered to become a rival to New York City. Jeanette's early life revolved around that Herring family, the Herring cousins and aunts and uncles, and the cousins came to number 35 and formed what they called the Cousins Club. I remember many large gatherings of Mom's cousins and aunts and uncles to commemorate many life events, or simply meals together, music, and the magic tricks of some of the uncles, like making the thumb disappear. I don't know how we did it. Mom and her younger sister, Giddy, grew up over their parents' store called Chorus Woolens on William Street in downtown Buffalo. Giddy would often recall their mother's refrain if Jeanette was leaving the house, "Take your sister with you," or "Don't forget Gittle." Mom remained very close to Aunt Giddy, even though she and Uncle Don and the Kirsch family lived in Toronto. The sisters spoke nearly every day as long as they could, and happily welcomed their kids into each other's houses as life grew on. Stephen and Jeffrey in Buffalo when they attended the University of Buffalo, and me and Barry when we moved to Toronto. We enjoyed countless Kirsch, Schonfeld visits for holidays and celebrations. Mom also embraced Dad's side of the family and his extended family, which included his brother and sister and wives and cousins in Rochester, Aunt Betty and Uncle Howard and Steve and Dick, and in England, Aunt Fran and Robin and Marion and Alan and Barbara. I remember bursting with anticipation with visits from our cousins from both Rochester and the Downeys from Cookham. The family bonds forged decades ago as children continue today. We have reunited regularly for birthdays of Jeanette here in Buffalo and her sister-in-law Fran in Cumbria. And we maintain our connection with regular Zoom calls to celebrate family birthdays and other events on a span that carries from 9 time zones from Berlin to Santa Barbara, with stops along the way in London, New York, Baltimore, Toronto, and Mexico City. And my most vivid, treasured memories of our own family. The early years, Barry and I, in our childhood, were spent in Germany and in Italy, while our dad served in the armed forces. We all learned to ski together at the Zugspitze in Garmisch, and I have a fond memory of warming up at lunch at Mountaintop with Einlaufsuppen. I hope I said that right, Adam, which is egg drop soup at the Mountaintop. We would go on to ski in Abetone in Italy. On reflection, I actually marveled at my mom at plus 30 learned to ski at the same time her kids did. My early family memories also include travel, and that has given me and her grandchildren a love of exploration of new places. When I was a boy living in Italy, we cruised the Mediterranean, hitting all the hot spots of Pompeii, Tripoli, Athens, Izmir, and Venice. For the rest of her life, Mom would speak with fondness of her memories of all those travels abroad, particularly Viareggio and Florence. I now see in my sons a similar wanderlust. Perhaps that explains why our son, Adam, has made homes in Italy and Germany, following a degree in Edinburgh, and Jake, who earned degrees in London, Paris, and Singapore. Mom was always optimistic. At the age of 70, to buy a new condominium in Florida. Around the same time, she bought a convertible, a silver convertible. She said the silver was chosen to match her hair full disclosure, the top never came down. I can't finish these remarks without noting two people. Our brother Barry. He has been her constant companion, friend, chauffeur, partner for many decades, escorting her to the symphony, to the senior center in Amherst to play bridge, and here to celebrate many, many services and relationships with her friends. And Benita West. She has been a companion, a caregiver, and friend who has devoted so much time and love to supporting Mom, and in my opinion, extended Mom's life way beyond what otherwise would have been her life. Benita, thank you. And to Congregation Shir Shalom, and Rabbi Alex, and Cantor Arlene. You have been a great source of comfort and support to our family, to Barry, to Mom, and the rest of our family through her final years. And to all of you, I'm touched by who's here. I'm reminded that Mom's sorority sisters from SAI, thank you. She would be touched to see and hear the outpouring of support that we all have received. Thank you.
Thank you, Harlan. And I will say on behalf of Congregation Shir Shalom, we benefited greatly from your mom and Barry, of course, as well. We're going to have Barry come up. He's prepared some words to talk about his mom.
Good afternoon, and thanks to all who have come considerable distances to help us recognize and illuminate the life of our mom. Now the time has come to pass what was once a mere baton to what it is today, a torch and flame. Mom was a real deal, which is testified by the fact that she had a vast library of violin music, including string quartets, violin sonatas, and violin concertos. Nothing could give me greater enjoyment than to take Mom to Kleinhans for a Saturday night performance of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. Mom will be sorely missed, as now I have to go to the concerts by myself. Mom made a name for herself in the secular realm, the concert hall, the classrooms, and the kitchens of the United States and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. After our next speaker, Barry will actually play, he has a dedicated piece of music that he'd like to play for his mom. But first we'll have Mark share some words about his mom.
When I think of our mother, the word that comes to mind is strength. Our mother had a lot of strength packed into her tiny 5-foot frame. Strength that propelled her to excel in music. She received her first violin at the age of 6 and took to it immediately. By age 13, she was already teaching violin to other children. In high school, she became concertmaster of her high school orchestra. Strength that gave her the confidence as a young woman in 1939 to become the first in her family to attend college. And not just any college, mind you, but one of the most prestigious music schools in the country, the Eastman School of Music at the University of Rochester, where I and also my brother Barry attended. And not just attend college, but to do so on a scholarship. For the daughter of immigrant parents who grew up over their store on William Street in Buffalo, this was a courageous leap. As she said in an interview with the Eastman School to commemorate her 100th birthday, attending Eastman was a transformative experience. It enabled her to have a career as a music teacher, to share her love of music with thousands of students over the course of her career. There are countless people whose lives were made richer by gaining an appreciation for music, whatever role it plays in their lives. Music also led her to her husband, our father, Seymour. While still a student at Eastman, Jeanette gave violin lessons to students in Rochester. One such student was Fran Schonfeld. And though Fran and Jeanette have an oddly similar memory that Fran was not the best violin student, Fran did have one highly redeeming quality. She had an older brother named Seymour. Jeanette met Seymour when he was on leave from the U.S. Army. They married in 1944 and soon had two sons, my brothers Harlan and Barry. Seymour pursued a career in the Army, and it was strength that enabled Jeanette, as a young mother who had never left New York State, to raise two boys in post-war Germany and Italy, as well as Army bases in the U.S. The couple eventually returned to Buffalo to be near her family. Our father retired from the Army after a 22-year career and took up a second career as a stockbroker. In yet another feat of strength, Jeanette delivered a baby, her third son, in the passenger seat of the family Buick, while my father drove to the hospital through your typical Buffalo late December snowstorm, about which my mother would later say, "Yeah, it was another boy." But it was only after having her third son that our mother, in yet another show of perseverance, returned to school in her 40s to earn a master's degree in music education at the University of Buffalo. She then resumed full-time teaching as a music teacher in the West Seneca Central Schools until she retired. In addition to music, Jeanette shared her love through food and cooking. Her grandsons bestowed on her the title Warrior of Meat. Her granddaughters could reliably count on a pot of chicken soup simmering on the stove when they came to visit. In fact, some of my fondest memories of my mother involved cooking. Making chopped liver, I got to turn the hand crank of the meat grinder. Making harosis at Passover, I got to chop the apples and walnuts in the wood bowl with the chopper. And at a time long before the Food Network, my mother and I would watch one of the earliest cooking shows on TV called The Galloping Gourmet. Mom would dutifully transcribe the recipe, procure the ingredients, and together we would try to replicate the dish for dinner. Unfortunately, the challenge of trying to learn to cook from our mother is that there were no cookbooks, no box of recipe cards, nothing to tell you what to do. And if you asked how she made something, the most you would usually get is, I don't know, a little of this, a little of that. And if you dared to ask for the recipe for her gefilte fish, you were met with a stern refusal coupled with an ominous warning. Trust me, you don't want to make it. No amount of pleading would convince her to divulge that recipe, apparently for your own protection. For our mother, food was also a way to impart to her children strength of character. At least I choose to believe that was her motivation, to punctuate the rotation of family meals with the occasional entree of pickled tongue. Because I can think of no other sound parenting reason to serve your children pickled tongue, other than to instill a survival instinct that would serve us well in adulthood. Indeed, and this is a true story, one of my most formative and harrowing childhood memories is my 4th grade lunchroom, when a classmate asked me what I had brought for lunch. And I naively, but honestly said, a tongue sandwich. This resulted in my immediate exile to a table by myself. Not a joke. Not surprisingly, I returned home that day to declare that henceforth I would no longer be consuming any tongue. Sadly, this led to many occasions in our mother's later life in which she would gaze longingly into the distance and lament, "I would really love a tongue sandwich." Amen. The list of Jeanette's strengths could go on. Strength to care for her aging mother with dementia. The strength many years ago at our father's insistence to take up skiing as an adult, and then the strength a few years later to say, enough already. And the strength to persevere after the loss of our father, her husband, and lead an active life filled with musical performance, friends, and family. In fact, into her 90s, our mother played the violin, with my brother accompanying on the piano, to perform for residents at the Weinberg Assisted Living Residence. Mind you, this was before she was a resident of Weinberg, because in her words, that was for old people. Perhaps above all else, Jeanette was a devoted mother, mother-in-law, aunt, sister, and grandmother. One of my favorite pictures of my mother is from a dinner at our favorite restaurant, Schwabel's, in 2009, when she was just a sprightly 89. She's seated at the table with a row of martini glasses lined up in front of her and the biggest smile on her face. Not because she had drunk all the martinis, she only had one, but because she was in her happiest setting, surrounded by her family, whom she loved and treasured more than anything else. Every visit to her was peppered with her frequent calls to friends and caretakers and anyone within earshot. Come meet my son, come meet my daughter-in-law, come meet my grandchildren. As I look at Jeanette's grandchildren, I see in them the same strength, the same love of life, love for adventure, travel, family, friends, food, laughter, and joy. Her grandchildren brought her the greatest joy and pride and an eternal anticipation for the next visit. Our mother was strong to the very end. She was blessed with exceptionally good health. She suffered no illness, took no medication, and survived injuries that would have taken others long ago, including a broken neck from falling out of bed at the age of 102. She passed peacefully after we all had a chance to say goodbye. She leaves behind a legacy of a life well lived, of countless lives touched, and generations blessed with her love and inspiration.
How amazing to hear from all three of her children. What a legacy she left. Barry has prepared a short excerpt of, forgive me if I get this wrong, Grieg Holberg, I believe, Suite 40. Think about how many times Barry played on that very piano, sometimes in an empty sanctuary. What a wonderful way to give a tribute for your mom. When I think about Jeanette, I think about how excited she would get when she would see you or greet you, or when she had an idea, she'd say, oh, oh, oh. Her voice would rise, and she would love to just invite you into her room when she was at Weinberg, have you sit down amidst all the wonderful artwork and music and tea. We had so many good times together, so many times studying Torah, learning together, and she never said no. If you wanted her to come play the violin, if Barry wanted to, we would always include her, and she had this wonderful smile on her face when she would play. It was so calm and joyous. She has not been the same the last few years. She lived such a long time, but every time I would see her, it was like she would be sitting there as often you would at Brothers of Mercy, And you would think she wouldn't understand, but then you'd come up to her and talk into her good ear, and she'd know exactly who you were, and it would be just like old times. I'm going to miss her. Our community will miss her. I know that her life will be a blessing. This is another poem in her memory. The musical notes stood in lines discordant in their grief before regaining their composure as black tears in embossed relief. The instruments played the salutation to a musician of note and much more. At the end, everyone stamped their feet. Encore, encore, encore. I'd like to invite up Cantor Frank and invite everyone to rise if you're able. We have the prayer called the El Malay in the middle of the inside of your leaflet. This is a prayer that her soul should find refuge with her ancestors.
El mare rachami, shochin b'mromim, hamsem nuchan chona, takakafe hashchina, ukdoshim udorim, kesohabrakia, maz ונשמע חנה בת מאיר ושרה שהלכה לעולמה ועל הרחמים יסיריה בסתר כנפיו ויולמי יצרה החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן.
Join with me in the English. Lord, full of mercy, who dwells on high, find fitting rest upon the wings of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, and the heights of the holy and pure, who shine like the glow of the firmament for the soul of Jeanette Schonfeld, who has gone to her eternal world. For we pray in memory of her soul, may her resting place be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter her in the shelter of God's wings forever, and may God bind her soul in the bond of life. The Lord is her inheritance. May she rest peacefully upon her resting place, and let us say, Amen.